If you ask me from from the outside perspective, I would say all 11 players from Caribbean island is going to be the. Oh, how should I start today? And what are we talking about? Okay, I'll give you a hint. We are talking about two-time 50 over champion team, a two-time T20 champion, a team that has an amazing cricket history, and it's fair to say, champions, champions. Yes, they are the champion team, a team that has always produces a class of elite fast bowlers. We are all versed in how the West Indies had those impressive batters in the past, like Sir Everton Weeks, Sir Garfield Sobers, Elvin Kalicharan, Clive Lloyd, Sir Vivian Richards, Lara, Chandrapal, and many more. And how can we ever forget those four fast bowlers? We will never. And why just the past? See what Shamar Joseph is doing currently. In simple words, just amazing. For me, it's a privilege that today I'm talking to Jerome Foster. Jerome is from Jamaica and the awardee of Jamaica Sports Journalist of the Year 2022, currently working as a sports reporter, producer at Television Jamaica. It was also a very insightful conversation which we had from cricket to interviewing skills, how I can improve. We discussed all the main things about how Jamaica cricket works and how any Caribbean youth can get into the international team. Our mutual favorites Courtney Walsh and Sir Vivian Richards bland Lara. West Indies' chances in the upcoming T20 World Cup and who is the top 4 team for this upcoming World Cup according to him. Enough. So enjoy this conversation and you will be amazed to know how West Indies select champions. So let's just start. So yes, thank you so much for coming here. Also, uh, look, there's a lot to discuss about West Indies and all the Caribbean islands over there. Okay, and the first thing I just want to know from you that how your journalism started specifically with sports, because I think you also won that this year. I think last year you won the Jamaica National Award, the Sport
Yeah,
Journalist of Year. How
yeah.
it all started for you?
I would say it's really a secondary option. I think as a child, everybody has big ambitions to probably be a doctor, or a pilot, or just those established
Yeah,
jobs where people look up to
sure.
you, or so on. So initially, I wanted to be a pilot, and then I just had a love for sports throughout my younger years, and then
Sure.
I played cricket for a long period of time. Not just cricket, but I also played football at high
Yeah.
school. Then
Yeah.
after a while, I developed I would say, passion for sports journalism and reading articles related to sports and features about sporting
Yeah.
achievers. And then I think after about 16, 15, 16, I realized that probably this is the direction that my life is going to go into, because I'm not a big fan of sciences in school, or wasn't a big fan of the sciences. Well,
Likewise, for sure.
yeah. So the chemistry and the biology, after a time, I just didn't bother with
Yeah.
them. Then I was playing sports, so it was more difficult for me to study those subjects. So I didn't have the time. I didn't balance it well enough at that time. That was like 15, 16. So I realized that communication was going to be my area. So I strengthened in that area, and this is where I am now.
Do you think, specifically, not sport journalism, any journalism, there's a bit of trait we can actually observe from the very early age, right? Like you mentioned about communication, okay? And when we talk about communication, is something that if you are very well versed with current affairs, you're well versed with anything, and you have ability to talk and write, now you are in the regime. Just go and do sport journalism or any journalism, right?
Yeah.
How in Jamaica, like you mentioned about how people talk about engineering, how people talk about doctor and every sort of thing with established job. When you just popped up that okay, I have to do sport journalism, so how your family reacted?
I don't. Well, I don't think they had an issue with it. I think what they wanted to do is ensure that I was balancing playing sports, or the student athlete life that I had, properly, while doing the book work, because that was fundamental for them as well. So you couldn't just play the sports and use it as an excuse to have bad grades. So, and then there was almost like a stigma attached to people who played sports. in Jamaica where people tend to say that they're not the brightest of the lot. So you had that
Sure.
additional burden where you had to do well in school to ensure that you merited a place in the school. And then when you got past the initial phase, which is the first level of secondary graduation, there's another form, grades 12 and 13, where you have to matriculate into that system
Sure.
from your senior exams, which is also a Caribbean exam. So it's not just a Jamaica
Okay.
exam, it's a Caribbean exam. So you have to get decent enough grades to elevate to that 12 and 13 grades. So
So it's
that
a
is
national level exam.
yeah. So it's a national exam, but it's called the Caribbean Examination Council, CSEC. So you
Sure.
have to so the same exam that you do here in Jamaica is done in Barbados and Guyana and Trinidad, St. Vincent, etc. So it's almost like a community. The Caribbean is like a community. So it's the same, everybody between 16 and 18, the same exams.
So cricket. First of all, cricket, because obviously cricket is something I want to discuss about Usain Bolt as well. Because how can you not discuss Usain Bolt from Jamaica? But first of all, I want to know about cricket. So, you've been in Jamaica for a very long time, and you also saw other Caribbean islands as well. When we talk about West Indies, a lot of people don't know that West Indies is not in any country. West Indies is a combination of a lot of islands. Okay, and one of the island is Jamaica. And when you talk about Jamaica and when you talk about cricket, so how Jamaican cricket work, not and how people get selected from Jamaica to West Indian team, how that structure work? I just want to know.
Yeah, so it's a very unique region, the Caribbean, in terms of how we go about playing cricket.
Sure,
And it makes it a little bit more difficult for people to be selected. Not like India where you have one landmass and you play and the top players just gather and the
sure,
selectors
sure,
their players, etc. In the region, in the Caribbean, it's completely different. So in Jamaica, you have to matriculate into the senior team, you have to do well in what we call our senior cup, which is a
okay,
2 day red ball competition played on a Saturday and a Sunday, and then you have a 50 over competition, which is predominantly played on a Saturday. And then once a player dominates in that, whether we bat or ball, get to play in the Jamaica trials, which is normally staged over about 4 to 5 weeks, where you play matches, the best 28 players for the season, as well as those players who would have represented the West Indies before, are in
sure,
that they're in the trial. So over the 5 weeks, you play matches, and then after that, that 28 trims down to about 14, 15. And then after you get into the Jamaica team, you now play a regional competition. So
sure,
so Barbados would do the same thing that we do to get to their final 14. And Guyana would do the same thing to get to their final 14. It's a little bit different now in the Eastern Caribbean, where you have the Leeward Islands and the Windward Islands. So the Windward Islands, those countries are St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, Dominica. Those are the countries who predominantly make up the Windward Islands. While the Leeward Islands now you have Antigua and Barbuda, St.
yeah, yeah,
Kitts, Montserrat, St. Martin. So those the Leeward Islands and the Windward Islands, they would have their inter-regional competition. So St. Lucia, Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, they would come together and play a Windward Islands competition. And then after you represent your individual countries, they
sure,
pick
sure, sure,
best players from that to form the Windward Islands team. And it's the same thing that entails for the Leeward Islands. So the best players from Antigua, St. Kitts, Montserrat, St. Martin, they will play in a combined championship called the Leeward Islands Championship.
sure.
And then the best players from those four countries merge to form the Leeward Islands. And then after that now, when you play for the Leeward Islands, Windward Islands, Guyana, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, the best players
Okay.
from those six countries play in a regional tournament. And then the top performers from those matches are normally selected to play for the West Indies. And that's how you get the West Indies team.
Jeez, it's a bit complex for sure. I think it's not easy to understand a lot of times because obviously, there's look. Okay, we grew up watching all the West Indians great, as I mentioned, right? In my text message also that how we it's a beautiful island. A lot of not only Jamaica, every island specifically, right? And having a ability to produce a lot of fast bowlers, a lot of fast athletes, and every sort of things. Okay, but still, in recent years, what we saw is there's a lot of it's a not hidden fact, right? That West Indies saw a lot of dip when it comes to a lot of formats, specifically within ICC tournaments. What do you think it's the reason behind this?
Okay. I think especially with our white ball cricket, I think we were like the pioneer of white ball of T20 cricket in
Yeah,
terms of
yeah,
how we played that format for a long period of time because
absolutely.
our players, how they are built, is just a natural thing. We're the most physical beings that play cricket, or
Sure.
because we're of African descent, so origin we're strong and powerful. So that
Yeah,
gives you an advantage that you're able to be a power banked team. So you depend on a lot of power to get the better
yeah, yeah.
of the teams. But what has happened is that the other teams have evolved as well. So they have also found a way to mix that power or generate that power with some more flexibility. It took us some time, or it has taken us some time to refine our game to move away from the complete dependence or over reliance on power to have a little bit more finesse. I think that has been the biggest issue with our white ball cricket. So if you look at the 2021 T20 World Cup that was
Mm.
in Dubai, yeah,
Yeah,
pitches were slow
yeah,
and low, and the balls weren't really coming onto the bat. It created a problem for our batters because we don't have the skill sets to
mm.
not and nerd and run between the wickets and so on. So the boundary hitting was always a problem. Secondly, I think selection of the teams is always an issue. It's always a massive
Okay,
issue because when
sure.
you, as I mentioned earlier, with the different territories, and you have a selector that is probably from Barbados or a selector from Guyana, a man from
Mm.
Guyana would probably say that this man should be selected because you're Guyanese, or
Okay,
a man from Barbados is in charge and he selects two players from Barbados who, on the face of it, should be in the team, but somebody else who is from Jamaica who is left out. There are question marks as to why is he not selected. So you have that insularity thing about it, where as much as we come together as one to represent
yeah,
a whole region, you don't
sure.
feel as if everybody believes in each other and everybody backs each other. So you're
Mm.
fighting
Mm.
for a specific space, and that creates some doubt around some of the players. So they're not as confident to express themselves. You don't think you
Sure.
believe, you don't think you belong in the
Mm.
team. There are so many media reports that you should not be in the team. There are question marks over why are you selected and so on. So those are the problems. I don't think preparation is a big issue, um, because even the last T20 World Cup, I don't think any team played more warm up matches than us. That was in the COVID-19 era, and we had seen here on a regular. We had Australia here, we had South Africa here, we had Sri Lanka here. Um, that was like 12 to 14 matches in preparation. So I don't think preparation is really the issue. Additionally, what we're finding out now is that the world and the sport is in a different dynamic. So franchise cricket has become so lucrative. So the
Okay,
players don't play a lot of matches for the West Indies together, even though you see them in
sure.
the parading themselves and their skills and dominating for long
Mm.
periods. For a large period between 2012 and 2021, when we won those two T20 World Cups, Chris
Sure,
Gayle,
sure, sure.
Kieron Pollard, Sammy, Dwayne Bravo, etc., they didn't play 50 T20 matches together in bilateral matches. And if you look at the other teams, you can see that there is always a structure and a continuity in terms of their plan. With the region, it's always different because we are so dependent on these players. I wouldn't say dependent. I don't think dependent is the right word. I think the problem is that our board is not able to pay them anywhere close to what is being offered in these leagues. So you don't want to stop their rights to trade or their rights to earn. So the board has basically coughed up the opportunity to really call them back or force them to come back and play because you're restricting their trade.
Mm.
So
You
that
know,
creates a problem as well.
before I just talk about how I see the structure of West Indies from outside, one thing which I noticed. So I was reading about, I just reading Clive Lloyd interview, 1975 champion, the first time when they won that trophy, World Cup, they also said that point of a time that even that time they have a financial issue, and that time every team is suffering from the financial struggles, right? Why still West Indies is still suffering? Because what we want to see a lot of test matches, and if we want to see a lot of test matches, we want a lot of finance as well. We want a lot of audience to come and then see this, right? Not only test matches, any bilateral tournament also, because we remember, like my dad's generation remember that how there's a strong build of West Indies player coming around in India or going to or playing in their home condition and doing well, right? And still, after franchise cricket came, we can't just blame franchise cricket, okay? But still, I just want to know from you why West Indies, how you see as a journalist, why West Indies still wouldn't be able to pay a much money to their players, which they should pay because they're international players.
Yeah. Well, the first part of it is that they're not generating enough revenue in terms of commercial. Um, the,
Okay.
the, the board, I think 2019, the board was in over 100 million US dollars in debt based on
Depth.
the fact that we were hosting matches but not really generating any ticket sales. And because the team is not doing so well,
Yeah.
people are not
Yeah.
really enthused to go out and watch the team play because in the region, as I tell you, it's almost a region that backs winners. So if you're not winning, it's very difficult for you to get that
Sure.
um, truckload of support, and that is part of it. But the game has gone beyond that as well, where television rights is dominating the scene. So when India comes here, the board will make a profit, or when England comes here, the board makes a profit based on the television rights and because of the traveling support as well of the English fans, the Birmingham fans. But other than that, Sri Lanka comes here, you hardly find 100 people in Jamaica stands or even in Trinidad for Test cricket. They will come out for the 1 day matches or the T20 matches, but
Sure.
the 5 day matches you find a decrease in terms of spectatorship and so on. So that is one reason. Secondly, they don't have enough corporate sponsors backing them, and that is because of the identity of the cricket. The cricket has been in the doldrums for some time, almost 30 years, when we were number one in
Okay.
1995. We haven't been there anytime. Well, 32 years now it's going. We haven't been there, so it's part of the problem. And then in the region where for you cricket is number one, and then you have hockey and so on. In the Caribbean and in Jamaica,
Yeah.
cricket is no longer number one. So you have track and field with that
Yeah.
produce in Bowles and Shelley and Fraser Price, Elaine Thompson, Hira, etc. So corporate companies are pushing their monies into that venture. They're
Sure.
believing that because Jamaica is almost number one in track and field, their brand will be on a
Mm.
bigger track and field rather than in cricket. So that is part of the issue as well. So the board is struggling to generate funding and having commercial people come on board. They're trying to revamp the structure now in terms of cutting the cost of some of the tournaments, even though they're increasing the prize monies, they're reducing the travel because inter-Caribbean travel is also a problem. So to
Sure.
move from Jamaica to Barbados, it's a
Mm.
struggle to get a direct flight, and
Yeah.
that creates another expense for the board as well. So all the camps now are staged in one territory. So that also creates a problem for the players to develop as well because they're not going in different
Mm.
conditions to play in different matches, and that as well hinders the growth and development of the player. While it's good for the board to have the matches played one place because it cuts cost and
Yeah.
creates revenue, it's
Sure.
a
Sure.
hindrance to the players and their development as
It's difficult, right? Because as you mentioned about how any not like you mentioned about transportation issues.
well.
Transportation is an issue. Accommodation is also an issue because traveling from one place to another, changes of hotels and all sort of financial issues, right? Still, you know, still I can easily say that a lot of you guys produce a lot of good players. Let's take an example of Shamar Joseph currently in the Australia versus West Indies in Gaba, the brand new team we can say. I'll talk about Shamar Joseph first. I just want to know about you because T20 World Cup is coming, and then this is obviously it's their home condition, and a lot of players are also new. Okay, and we saw how they well performed against England, against India, and they won the series, right? How do you see this West Indies team? A lot of time we talk about West Indies is done. We are not. Come on, we know that West Indies is never going to be done, right? Because it's
Yeah.
their team, and they can definitely be a dark horse every single day, right? And maybe a potential winner, right? How do you see this West Indies team going? How do you see this team for this T20 World Cup?
Um, I would be very ambitious if I say win because I think the team is short of a couple of quality bowlers. I think
Sure.
that's the biggest issue with the team. How the team is built and structured is similar to how we won in 2012 and 2016, where you had a large amount of all rounders, but also
All rounders. Yeah.
the team
Yeah.
was long enough with capable hitters. So up to number 9 and 10 were capable of winning games. Hence, Carlos Brathwaite was able to produce that sensational effort in 2016, where we needed 20 runs of the final over, and he got those 4 sixes. So the team is
Remember
structured.
the name.
Yeah,
Remember the name.
yeah. The team is structured in the same way, where you have
Sure.
Jason Holder batting at number 9, which tells you that the coaching staff believes that this is the best avenue for the team to perform. And he's doing that because he has already accepted the fact that enough quality bowlers are not within the setup. And it's a big
Mm.
area for us. It's and if you watch the matches, it's either the team struggles to contain the team in the power play or a team gets away at the back end of the innings. So
Sure.
that tells you that the bowling is a problem. But how I see them stacking up, I don't see 4 teams beating them over the duration of the tournament. Just on the fact that the amount of power that is in the team, that's one. The home
Sure.
conditions where the boundaries are very small, there's a massive wind factor as well. And
Mm.
the games are going to be played in the day. So
Okay.
yeah, it makes it a lot easier for how our players play. So not a lot of movement and so on in the night, and not a lot of dew factor as well, where the ball is going to get
Mm.
wet and so on. So that is part of the plus for the team. And
Sure.
if I count the teams that I think can really give them a problem, would probably be Australia, because I think Australia, they have the same amount of quality and depth in their hitting as the West Indies. That's one, but they have way superior bowlers,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Mm.
And Australia, the only trophy that they don't hold now is this World T20 title. So they are the holders of the women's T20, the women's 50 overs. They are the World Test champions, and they are the World 50 over champions. They got the better of you guys. Sorry to say,
Yeah.
yeah. So
No,
they
it's
have
okay. I can
they
understand.
have every trophy now, and I think that is a big motivation for them. That's one.
I think they already won around 2021, right? In Dubai.
Yeah, and they won
Wait,
2021, but 2022 was won by England. So
yeah, it's
yeah,
and
so
I
they
remember
still
the game. Yeah, the
yeah
first game, Australia versus New Zealand, right? They
yeah
just bundled down 90 runs all out. So definitely, it's a motivation for them to win this time for
yeah. So that they are one team. I think England, because of England's hitting power as well, and I think Jofra Archer is going to come back for the World Cup. They have done everything to keep
sure.
him away and
Yeah,
keep him fresh for the World Cup. He's a massive plus if he's back because he's an X factor in terms of his bowling and his all-round ability. That's two. India and South Africa. They are the only other teams I think can beat the West Indies over the duration of the tournament if the conditions stay how they are. So those are the 4 teams that I think can actually stop the West Indies from winning the trophy.
what do you think about Kiwis, New Zealand?
They're a tournament team. I am a big fan of the Kiwis, but I just think they are short in terms of flexibility. Yeah, I think the
Okay.
team is a little bit one-dimensional in how they approach it now in terms of their T20 cricket. But there's one thing with New Zealand: they never rule them out. They're always going to
Yeah.
come and they're going to put on a show in a tournament. I think we're in the same group, by the way. I think the West Indies are in the same group with New Zealand and Afghanistan, Papua New Guinea, and Uganda. But I wouldn't bet on New Zealand winning in the region just because of the conditions and the way how their team has been playing T20 cricket recently. I'm not really so confident, but I never ever rule on New Zealand in world tournaments. That's almost a sin, to be
Well,
honest.
this time also we have 20 teams, right? Because
Yeah,
it's almost after a decade that we are watching a lot of teams coming, playing different groups, then Super 8. Then you talk about 4 teams, 5 teams, and one more team. I just want to talk about Pakistan because
yeah,
you mentioned about how fast bowling is important. And yes, in recent years, recent times, I would say, after Asia Cup, they have been struggling with their bowling lineup as well. What do you think about Pakistan bowling lineup apart from Haris Rauf? Because Haris Rauf is not here right now.
yeah.
What do you think
His
about them?
contract was terminated earlier this week. I think the problem for Pakistan has been the struggles of Shadab Khan. He was instrumental in that
Sure.
2020 T20 World Cup where they went to the final and they lost to the Indian team. His form has tapered off a big way with the ball. So they're struggling to find that spinner along with Mohamed Nawaz who can actually pick up wickets. So they have become over reliant on Dain Shah Afridi just being the main wicket taker. And teams have now figured out that once we can be, I would say, state against Shine Shah Afridi, don't give him more than a wicket or two in the power play, and you still can
Yeah.
score 45, 50, you can still make it up in the middle of the innings because Nazim Shah
Hmm.
hasn't been back to his full fitness as yet. So they're still struggling to find that extra pacer. And as you said,
Yeah.
Harris Ruff has
Yeah.
not been the same for the last 18 months or so. So I
Hmm.
think that is the biggest issue for them. Secondly, working out their batting order is a problem as well. They don't want Babar Azam and Mohamed Rizwan to be batting in the power plays. But the substitution or the people that they are using to open the innings, they're not spending enough time to keep them away
Sure.
from batting in the power play together. They tried it in New Zealand recently, and it didn't work. They were swept because um, Mohamed Harris as well as Saim Ayub, they weren't able to spend enough time in the
Sure.
power play to help Rizwan. And I personally don't have an issue with both of them batting in the power play. It's just that Pakistan's struggles are bigger than both of them batting a large portion. They just don't have enough power at the back end. They only have Iftikhar Ahmed as
Yeah.
their power hitter.
Power hitter. Yeah.
Yeah, you need more than that in T20 cricket. You have to have a sustained amount of hitting down the back end of the order. And even if Babar Azam and Mohamed Rizwan bats 90 balls together, you don't expect them to be scoring at upwards of 8 runs and over. So that kind of puts an onus on you to find consistent hitters, and that is a problem that
Yeah.
I think not both of them have to play because they're arguably the two best players in the country. They have to play, but it's how you find the balancing act, and I think that is a problem for them. Rizwan is better at the top, but I don't have an issue with Babar Azam batting at three. You have to find somebody to open who is not just going to score 15 off nine, probably somebody who's going to score 30 off 19, so that when Babar comes in, he has enough time to change the game and bat deep and create issues for the opposition.
This is something which I really like about West Indies team that they don't go with the names, they go with the who is going to score 10 runs per over, right?
Yeah,
This is something which is actually important for any time. And you mentioned about how bowling is important, and you also said that one Sain Shah Afridi cannot go and just wins the game for you. Bowlers is going to win the tournament for you, not the one bowler,
yeah.
right? So
T20 is all about the bowlers. It's all about the bowlers. It's a team which
yeah,
bowls the best. They're the teams that tend to come out on top. If you look back to all the years that this World Cup thing has been staged, 2012 with the West Indies with Narayan and
yeah,
Badri, 2014 when Sri Lanka won, they had a truckload of spinners plus Malinga. 2016 the West Indies came back with Badri and well Narayan wasn't there, but Badri was there again, and you tend to see even 2021 with the Australians, yeah, the Cummins, Stark, etc. Zampa played a big
yeah.
part in it as well. If you don't have quality bowlers, you're not going to be winning T20 World Cup. But I think, well, I think outside of compensating or just accepting the fact that the team doesn't have enough bowlers, so you're playing enough all rounders to make up the runs, it is chaotic. When the game gets stretched, you can't
Yeah.
depend on medium pacers to carry over the line. You need exceptional talent.
120 balls and making 200 runs is definitely not a safe option right now. I
Yeah,
can easily say because in the country we have IPL, right? Out of 10 matches, I saw 9 matches there where teams actually, easily chase that 200 runs or 220 run target. And
Yeah.
still, how you see, because you mentioned Sunil Narayan, right? He recently retired, and we all know how great a player he was when he was playing. Okay, so how you see his career?
On the franchise scene, he was next to none in terms of what he produced. He was outstanding, simply the best in terms of his demeanor, how he went about his work. He was very difficult to get away, and he was used
Sure.
almost as a I don't want to use that word. He was almost used as a bait, in a sense, because teams would get away and then they just throw the ball to Narayan and then the game just changed. For the West
Yeah.
Indies, he was a key cog in the wheel for those titles as well. So overall, it's an outstanding career, but it was just cut short because of a lot of indifference and no real direction as to who is on the right page or who is saying the truth. Because there were a long period of time where he was saying that he wanted to play, and then the selectors were saying that whenever they reached out to him, he was saying he's unavailable. So you didn't really know who was telling the truth. He had some
Sure.
issues with that with his action as well. Then the board felt as if he rushed back himself into the game and didn't follow the advice of some people in and around his circle. So they were worried that whenever he gets an international call up, that he would be called again. So there were
Hmm.
fears about his action for some point as well. But outside of that, he's next to none. And you would know because he has been at Kolkata forever.
Okay, this is something which is he's initially we thought it's going to be a little bit of failure for the teams because it's like a gamble, right? Maybe he will make runs, maybe he's not going to make runs, but a lot of times he made the runs and eventually made sort of think that Kolkata Knight Riders won 3-4 times, right? The IPL. So it's another where in that. Dude, I want to talk about one more thing. Shamar Joseph
Yeah,
from Guyana. uh I remember because I watched the whole session, the last session specifically when he got out Hazelwood and then the run with the Gaba. After that game, he got selected for the PSL thing, PSL draft, and then obviously for the IPL he also got selected. Uh, in my last podcast, I was interviewing someone from America, and I told them that for us and for anyone, we have to save fast bowlers. Okay, as a viewer, we just want to see because I remember I was just saying that guy that I was watching Michael Holding interview, and he said that if you really want to be a good fast bowler, play less cricket,
yeah.
right? This is how do we see a bowlers like Shamar Joseph future? Because I remember, because I have to let me quickly add this, because Jofra Archer also struggled with his injury and because playing a lot of cricket. How do we see his career going?
First, I think the board has to take control in terms of the amount of cricket that he plays. He's now centrally contracted, so he was upgraded from his territorial contract, which is a Guyanese contract. So him being upgraded now, I think the board has a little bit of a control over his workload.
Hmm.
Um, the fact that he's going to be playing the PSL, going to be playing the IPL, means he won't be able to play any red ball cricket in the region for this season. So he won't play in the first class cricket. Our next tour is in July in England.
Hmm.
So he won't have any red ball preparation, right? But there's also
Yeah.
another part of it where this is a man who was doing a job that he felt was not going to make him survive for a long period of time, wasn't going to make his family off. So now he's
Yeah.
using his cricket as an avenue to make himself better off financially. I don't think there's any problem with him doing it now, right? He's at the embryonic stage of his career and his development.
Sure.
But what you don't want is that when you have 10, 12 test matches for the year, you don't want to have him flying all around the world and
Yeah.
playing matches in Dubai, then he moves to India, then he moves to Pakistan, he comes to the CPL, he goes. That's where the strain on the body is going to come, and that is where he's going to be
Sure.
overworked, and that is where the problem is going to be generated. So I think the West Indies Cricket Board can actually regulate
Hmm.
movement and say that you're not going to be playing any white ball cricket for a certain period of time. We're not going to be, you're only going to play 3 franchise leagues for the year, or you're going to play X amount of matches for the year. in terms of preserving him. He has already made the point that he's willing to sacrifice everything once West Indies has a test series. So that is one point, one part that you have to look at. But
Sure.
him playing more is also important because he's a late bloomer. He didn't play. He didn't play youth cricket because he couldn't train on Saturdays because he was a 7 day Adventist, so he couldn't play youth cricket. So he wasn't able to play a lot of cricket when he was younger. So
Yeah.
he's still learning his craft, and the more he goes around experienced people and people who are skilled, he will learn a lot as well, and that is going to benefit the cricket, not just himself but the
Absolutely.
West Indies team. Right? That's another point. The third
Okay.
point is that you don't need to have him playing all the formats as yet. So the West
Yeah.
Indies, they're going to play in the T20 World Cup. I would presume that he has to be selected because he's bowling upwards of 140. He's going to be that X factor. I think Azari Joseph is the only bowler who bowls to those levels. O'Shane Thomas is in the squad,
Mm.
but based on form and based on what has been happening, I think Shamar Joseph would easily supersede him. The only other option is Obed McCoy, and he has been struggling with his back end bowling for the last 18 to 24 months. So that is why he's not
Sure.
in the squad. So I would assume, I am assuming
Mm.
that Shamar is going to be a part of the squad, but him playing the T20 World Cup will still give him enough time to recover to go to England in July. But after this year, which is obviously a loaded year and an emerging, Cricket West Indies can dictate how he goes about being selected in franchise leagues. They probably don't want him playing some of the leagues when they're very
Sure.
close to series or close to international engagements, because we have seen promising fast bowlers before. Jaden
Yeah.
Seals burst onto the scene, and then he was overplayed and overworked, which now you're seeing him recovering and recuperating. He's playing in the domestic competitions now, so he's getting back to full fitness. You don't want to have, and Joseph has already shown the inclination that he's somebody that is willing to bowl 10, 12, 13 overs on the spin if you don't take control of the situation.
Absolutely.
You have to, as a captain, a coach, manage him for himself, not just allow him to do what he.
It's a saying, right? Overcooked fast bowler is bored fast bowler. So I want to ask you. I just want to conclude. We have few questions now, and the question which I have for you first, that T20 World Cup, as I said, who do you think is going to be next factor for West Indies this time?
The X uh, the X factors.
It's a tough question for sure.
Yeah, it is because I think Budakesh Moti is going to play a massive role as a
Yeah,
second
he's a
spinner.
spinner, right?
Yeah, he's a
Yeah,
second spinner. I have so much time for Shafeen Rutherford and I think Shamar Joseph. Those three players. I think the world knows what Andre Russell can do. But I think
yeah,
Rutherford, Moti, and Shamar Joseph. Well, actually, there are three Guyanese, by the way. Those three names. So those three people would be the ones to look out for. I'm not sure about Shimron Hetmeyer's stance now. I don't know what's happening with him. I know he was left
mm,
out of the squad for the last couple of games against England, and then he was left out for the series to Australia. So I'm not sure what's happening with him. I'm not sure if he's even going to be selected based on the fact that he was selected for the last tour, because that would be the last tour before the World Cup. Because the
yeah,
IPL
yeah.
ends in May. The IPL ends on May 26th. The World Cup starts on June 3. So it's
Yeah.
highly unlikely that
Hardly any time.
there's
Hardly
not
any time.
exactly there's not going to be any cricket between that time. So unless he goes to the IPL, and he has been doing extremely well in the IPL for the last 4 or 5 years, if he
Sure.
beats on the door, then maybe we could see him in the team at the expense of who? I am not sure, but I would have him in
Yeah.
my 15 because I think he's one of the best 15 players in the region in this format. But as I said, my X factors are going to be the three Guyanese: Rutherford, Moti, and Shamar Joseph.
Yeah. Two players. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you ask me from no, from the outside perspective, I would say all 11 players from Caribbean island is going to be the champion side is. Dude, I just want to know that you mentioned about how politics also work over there, specifically how to select players. From the Guyanese, don't take Jamaican a lot of times. Okay, is there any reservation also there, like in South Africa, because of the lot of things? we saw a lot of reservations over there as well. So is there also a reservation between the islands, that 3 players from Jamaica, 2 players from Guyana, like this?
Not necessarily, because I think there's more accountability now. There was a stage when Courtney Brown was the selector. That was when Jason Holder was the captain. The
Yeah.
team was predominantly lit with Barbadians. So there were
Oh,
question marks over that. You had Ruston Chase, Dorwich, Holder, Brathwaite, Hope, Brooks. At one stage, you had 7, 8 Bajans in the team. And people started to question the rationale behind some of the selections. But now, a little bit more diversification in terms of the selection, a wider range. But you have people from Trinidad. I think you have a selection from every part of the region. Now there's a better mixture in terms of the selection. You have a player
sure,
from each region now in the team. So you have a Jamaican, Azari Joseph is from the Leeward Islands. Jonathan
sure,
Johnson Charles is from the Windward Islands, and you have Barbadians, and the captain is from Jamaica, and you have Trinidad and Tobago players as well, Akil Hussein and Puran and so on. So you have
yeah,
a mixture, and the Guyanese, as I mentioned. So you have a wide range of players now. So there are no real complaints in terms of the selection. It's just when you see 5, 6, 7 players from one country in a team, especially when their team is not dominating the regional competition,
sure.
then questions are going to be asked.
11 players, if you want to choose from all over the side, all over the world, who you are going to select? Okay, this it's a tough question, but I want to ask you this:
My
11
best,
players,
my best
all
11.
11, not West Indian, from all
Yeah.
over the country. You have to select. Yeah,
So that would be what, T20, 50 over, what is it?
just T20 World Cup, T20 team.
20 World Cup. All right. So I will have Just Butler opening. Right.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
one. The second opener for me would probably be your captain.
Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, it's either Roy Sharma or David Warner. So I'll probably, so since I have a right hand, I'm gonna go David Warner.
Yeah, David Warner. Sure.
All right, Virat Kohli bats at 3.
Sure.
Then well,
Okay.
then Nicholas Puran.
Absolutely.
I'm looking for a all rounder now. I'm looking for
Andre Russell.
uh no, well, I just said Puran, so I'm gonna go Henry Claassen for 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Henry Claassen. 6, 7. I need an all rounder. Look, Hardik Pandya is gonna be my 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then my
Fast bowler on Launder. Yeah.
bowlers now are Jasprit Bumrah, Zampa,
Okay.
Archer.
Okay.
I need one more bowler. Let me search for a bowler. One more.
Uh, Mitchell Stark.
And I could probably go Mitchell Stark. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that would,
I'm a bit disheartened. I would say why. You know why? Because you didn't mention Phil Salt. I saw
oh,
his game against West Indies, specifically in the West Indies zone, and dude, he's a good player. You know,
mm,
he's a very
yeah,
good player.
yeah,
Yeah,
he
bit inconsistent, but
wastes a
still,
lot of.
lot of times. So yeah, it's a bit issue. So last question I have for you, Jerome. Andre Kohli is a test coach for you, and then you have a white ball format coach, which is Darren Sammy,
Yeah.
also the champion side. He led the team in 2016 when West Indies won in India, right? So, but still, okay, let's talk about first test matches, because obviously West Indies hardly play a lot of test matches, which is a fact, right? In the same thing when it comes to the ODI sessions, and we saw that game against Australia recently where they struggled, you know, a lot of times. How do we see these two coaches in the West Indies circuit? Are they doing really well? Because I'm not tracking that much. So I just want to know from you that how these two coaches are doing over there, performing. How?
Well, I'm gonna start with the white ball coach first, because Darren Sammy was appointed almost out of the hat. To be quite honest, he's an inexperienced coach. He doesn't have the
Yeah,
high level of certification either. He doesn't have a level 3 coaching certificate. So there were doubts about his coaching
sure.
credibility or credentials. But because Sammy is such a great leader of men, he's gonna be well respected.
Sure.
He's well respected, and the players will play for him because of his passion and so on. In terms of how the team is playing, you can see a direct style and a similarity to when he was playing. So you can give him
Yeah.
that. And that is for the T20s. For the 50 over, the team is in a transition or a
Mm.
transitional phase. Because remember now, we didn't qualify for the World Cup for the first time in our history last year. And that was a massive blow financially, um, physically, and emotionally for the people of the
Absolutely.
region. It was almost like an
Absolutely.
embarrassment. But for people like me who are
Mm.
following the cricket, it wasn't a shocker because our 50 over cricket has been woeful for the last 25 years.
All over
And
the world. All over the world.
yeah, whether home or away, you could
Yeah.
see that the West Indies were going to be in a dogfight to get to the World Cup. So it's not a strange
Yeah.
thing for the 50 over cricket. So he's trying to set out a model as to how we play 50 over. He tried it in the Super 50, which is our regional 50 over competition, where you had bonus points for teams who scored
Sure.
6 runs and over in the power
Mm.
play, and then in
Mm.
the middle phase you scored upwards of 5 runs and over. Not many teams got to those standards, but it's a benchmark that he's trying to set now and create, select his
Sure.
play from, so you can understand the direction of that. And for the T20s, he has lost only one. He has lost only one series, and that was to
Yeah.
Australia. So he won
Mm.
against India, won against England, won against
England.
South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to give him that. Uh,
Test
the,
coaching.
the test team, I think, is in a bigger conundrum in terms of the players, because the players that we have depended on for the last couple of years, they're now getting to the back end of their careers. So people like Kemar Roach and Jason Holder, and Holder hasn't been in the greatest of forms for the last 18 months. We're being quite frank with either bat or ball. But he
Sure.
gives something different. He's that stabilizer. You can use him as a holder from an end, no pun intended there. So he can bowl long spells and
Mm.
cause problems. But in terms of the shape of the team, we have young openers, we have young middle order players. So even Shea Hope, who dominates with white ball cricket, he struggles with red ball cricket. We don't have consistent scorers in our domestic competition who are scoring or averaging upwards of 40 for us to just draw to them and insert them into
Sure.
our. Similar to India, for example, KL Rahul is out of the test series, couple of test matches.
Yeah.
You had Safraz Khan coming in, and he's averaging over 50 in Ranji cricket.
Yeah.
He has
Absolutely.
over 1400. Rajit Patidar, he's having the time of his life in Ranji cricket. But we don't have anybody in the region who can boast similar styles or averages or qualities. So
Sure.
once you have somebody playing at the test level, we're just hoping for people to him to just take on the world based on just their natural talent. It's not coming from consistency or what they have done over the years, because it's just not there. It's just not there.
Yeah, yeah, it's wonderful. I think for me, it's also an insightful conversation because for the first time, I'm just getting to know someone who is actually into a lot of sports, right? So, nothing better than this, Jerome. And obviously, I hope that the team which you have selected for this T20 World Cup is going to win someday. Who is going to be your captain first? Just tell me. Captain and wicket keeper. The team
So
11, the
yeah,
dream 11 which we selected.
I use Butler as a wicket keeper,
Yeah.
and gonna go David Warner as the captain.
As a captain, David Warner.
As the captain, yeah.
Strange call. Strange call. For sure. Last question before I just wrap up everything. Um, I'm sure you also followed your previous legends because as an outsider, I saw a lot of YouTube videos when it comes to Michael Holding, Joel Garner. A lot of times, right? We already, like I said, we grew up watching them. Who who was your bowler or batsman, batter? Actually, you look up to.
I would well for bowler was Curtly Ambrose, but for batter it's a no-brainer with Brian Lara. I don't think anyone is.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I thought you will say Vivian Richards.
Oh well, I wasn't in that era, but I've seen enough videos. But I just have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
level of ratings and respect for Brian Lara, because I thought he played in a different era where the team was a weaker team. Sir Viv was outstanding, but he had better players around him. But you can't take anything away from Sir Viv because you think, in my estimation, he was ahead of his time. And if he was in this era, he would probably be a trillionaire now.
Yeah. Trillionaire, you said.
Yeah, he
Wow.
was scoring at the rate that people are scoring now in Test cricket and giving it new names as Ball and all of this. He was doing this before the game got to where it is now.
Yeah, in whites as well. Whites
Exactly.
as well, in colors as well, everywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jerome, for this conversation which I have. I have to discuss a lot of things from you. Maybe later, where can I discuss a lot of things? Maybe after World Cup, maybe after watching you guys winning the trophy and every sort of things.
I
So
wouldn't mind.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jerome, for this conversation, and hopefully, all the best for your future stints. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, man. And we can always reach out to you. All right.
So, yeah.
All right. No problem.
Cheers, buddy.
All right.